Hey everybody, how are you? So earlier today, I spoke at a conference which was for students who were nominated and accepted into a student leadership program. So it was a variety of colleges that the faculty and staff had decided that these particular students were showing ambition and above and beyond their peers and got nominated for this program. And part of that program was to be able to attend these conferences, which I believe are held twice a year. And we went over a variety of topics that any up-and-coming leader would need to know. My portion of this conference was talking about personal branding and also, to a lesser extent, the importance of saying no, because I do believe those two things are connected, and I will tell you how. Earlier today there were other presenters with me, sort of like a panel situation, but today here it's just me, so I can say whatever I want. So I'm going to expand a little bit more on some areas that I didn't get to earlier, although overall I'm not sure that it will be that in-depth, as these types of things take a long time to really work out. So it's going to be a brief overview, just something to get you to think a little bit and maybe take it a little further on your own and do some research. So the one thing that I like about personal branding is that it's something that can be relevant for anyone. I personally believe it can be relevant for anyone of any age at any time, but if someone else out there didn't feel like it was relevant for them, it may be something for a child or a family member or somebody who, a family friend who has a child that's going into college or something like that. There's no one out there that doesn't have someone they can benefit from learning about branding, but I believe we all can learn a thing or two. And the definition, or the one that we're going to kind of talk about right now, of personal branding is the ongoing process of establishing a prescribed image or impression of yourself. Some other people might say that it's what you stand for, which is a very simple way of looking at it. And part of that, and what a lot of other people focus on, is the skills and experiences that make you you. So that's where we're going to start off with that. And I like to kind of evoke the thought, or the thought exercise of sort of the type of person that I think we all know, where, let's say, you're talking in a group, you're at work, or you're with a group of your friends, or you're at church, or you're at a club meeting of some kind, or an organization, and everyone's standing there talking, and someone comes in the room and everyone's like, oh, here comes so-and-so, and all collectively sort of rolling their eyes, or audible like or something like that. Or you call your friend on the phone and you're like, guess who I ran into today? Can you believe I saw so-and-so? And they're like, oh man, how did you get out of that conversation? Because they talk forever and ever and ever. And so I have been through those situations, and unfortunately I have to admit I've said that about people in the past. Not proud of it, but I have. And I've always thought to myself, man, if I'm ever that person, like if I ever evoke that kind of response from a group of friends, family, co-workers, whatever it may be, I hope someone tells me, because I do not want to be that person. Like, it is extremely important to me to never become that person who is just universally has a group of people rolling their eyes at them. So when we think about personal branding and why I say that it can be relevant for anyone is because we could all be that person, or we can be the opposite person, where when somebody walks into the room, or when somebody gives you a call, or when somebody asks you for something, or you ask them of something, that they're like, absolutely no problem. Or when you're not in the room, let's say, you get brought up in a conversation, or somebody mentions you, or somebody says, what do you think of so and so for this job position? And they're talking about you, that you can be the kind of person who, their eyes will light up, or they'll say, oh, they're perfect for that, or all these different attributes, like your appearance, your voice, your characteristics, your personality, whether you are reliable or not. All of those things all get wrapped up into the brand of you. So I'll go over a little bit of an exercise that I brought for the students, which is this right here, and it is front and back. So I'm going to, again, this is not a comprehensive, I'm not going to solve all the problems that anyone might have right now, but just to give you something to think about, something to muse on. Maybe you've thought about it before, maybe you haven't. Maybe you're thinking, I should put more thought into this. What do I do next? So what I'm going to talk about here is your personal mission and vision statement. So most people know that businesses or corporations have a vision or mission statement, or a college might, or maybe like a big medical group or something like that will have a vision statement. But we can have one for ourselves. And I'm going to give you some examples of famous people's mission statements. So, for example, to serve as a leader, live a balanced life, and apply ethical principles to make a significant difference. That is Denise Morrison from Campbell Soup. The next one is, if something is important enough, you should try, even if the probable outcome is failure. And that is Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla. The next one is my favorite one because I feel very connected to it. I almost kind of wish the person didn't come up with it so I could have come up with it in this life, but alas. And that is, my mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. And that is Maya Angelou. The next one is, to use my gifts of intelligence, charisma, and serial optimism to cultivate the self-worth and net worth of women around the world. And that is from Amanda Steinberg of dailyworth.com. A very simple but very magical one, to make people happy. And that is Walt Disney. And two more. One is, to be a teacher and to be known for inspiring my students to be more than they thought they could be. And that is Oprah Winfrey. And the last one is, I want to serve the people, and I want every girl, every child to be educated. And that is Malala Yousafzai, the Nobel Prize laureate and activist. So that is an example of, like I said, some famous people, and you can find many, many more examples online. But for, let's say you want to write your own, or you're curious about the components of one. So there are 4 things to keep in mind when writing your personal mission statement. Number 1 is be clear and simple. This is not designed to be a huge paragraph or a novel or anything like that. you see that the ones that I read here, the maximum amount of sentences in there is 2. And so most of them just have 1, and some of them are very, very, very concise. So it's very, very important that you be clear, simple, and concise. Number 2, avoid elaborate language and buzzwords. This is a personal favorite of mine because I hate jargon. I am so anti-jargon. And if anybody is not sure what that means, jargon or buzzwords, they're sort of like when people use overly flowery language, like I guess sometimes people will say like 10-cent words versus like 50-cent words, like, or something like that, where like if you wanted to say something like now I have to come up with an example at the top of my head, where you would pick a simple word like running, like I went running today, and instead of saying running you said gallivanting, which is like, it's just unnecessarily flowery. And a lot of times what people will do, and I'm sure many of you have run into this in the past, is sometimes when you go to conferences or you see a presentation of some kind, you will see people who are kind of purposefully using a lot of jargon or buzzwords to sound smart or to make themselves feel smart. I have always disliked this very, very much, and I have had this happen to me, or I've had that happen around me before, where I have spoken at events or on a panel of some kind, and the other people on the panel are there to either sell something or make themselves, I guess, feel better or feel like they're the smartest person in the room. And what ends up happening is they turn everybody off and they do the opposite of what they intended to do. Because sometimes when we say things purposefully to sound smarter than we are, and we talk over people's heads, we're actually, unfortunately for us and for them, talking in a language that they can't understand. And so for me, whenever I go on a panel, whenever I get up to talk, whenever I do any kind of presentation, I try to make things as simple and easy to understand as possible, because my intention is to help people. My intention is to teach people so that they can do things for themselves, not to talk at them to make myself feel better. So if you're ever at a presentation or anything like that and those things are happening, just know it's not you, it's them. So making sure that we are avoiding flowery, sort of bigger words necessary. The third one is that your mission statement should be easily explained to others. And a lot of people will say for this particular step, they'll reference the elevator pitch, which is, many of you probably already know, but in case you don't, it references if you were to get on an elevator with someone at the ground floor and you're going to the top, you don't have a ton of time to talk to them in the elevator. It's a very short amount of time. So the elevator pitch is you explaining your product, your service, yourself, or whatever you need to get across in the amount of time that it would take to get to the top floor with someone when they get off. So in this case, we say be easily explained to others. Thankfully, if we're already being clear and simple and we are using very clear and concise words, it should be easily explained. We don't want to sit there and try to trip over our words or give someone this long story, this long rambly story. We should just be easy. We should understand it and we should rehearse it and know it so we can explain it to other people and they get it. And the fourth one is that it should be recognizably yours. Again, we talked before about how your personal brand is what makes you you. So you should make sure when you're writing these statements that they are uniquely yours. So what I'll tell you definition, and then just kind of give you something to think about in case you want to write these down and do it on your own. If you do, by the way, feel free to comment or send me a message if you did and if you have any questions. So the mission statement, a several sentence statement describing your life's purpose. It should be a practical, tangible tool that you can use to make decisions about your priorities, actions, and responsibilities in life. It cannot be just a generic feel-good statement that can describe any person. It should cover the following areas. 1, what is the broadest way to describe your purpose? And the example given here is providing clean drinking water. So let's say we're going to use that as an example. Number 2, for whom do you do this work? The example in this particular situation would be to people without access to water. Number 3, why do you exist? And that means what problems or needs are out there that need to be fixed. So in this case, it would be millions of people lack access to safe water. And the 4th one is, where do you work? So geographic boundaries, online space, whatever it may be. And that would be, in this case, in developing countries. So if you read that back with the answers to the questions, it would say, my mission is to provide clean drinking water to people without access to it because millions of people lack access to safe water in developing countries. So that full sentence at the end would end up being your mission statement. So again, the broadest way to describe your purpose, for whom are you doing the work, what problems or needs are out there that you need to fix, and where are you doing it? So that's something to think about. Now, on the flip side, literally, is the vision statement. And that is a statement describing the clear and inspirational long-term change that will result from your work. And it should be a practical, tangible tool you use to guide yourself to your desired results. It cannot be a bland reinstatement of the mission statement. And these are some of the things that you should think about when you're writing a vision statement. What needs to be changed? What are the major issues or problems? Why should these issues be addressed? What are your personal strengths and assets? And what would success look like? So if you were able to solve this problem, if you were able to complete your mission, at the end of all of that, what would it look like if it was complete and you were successful? Now, one of the things that I love about this exercise, and an exercise that was given to me and now I give to others, is you should consider visually expressing your vision statement. You should always write it out. I think it's best to have it on paper and to really think through these things. But I am a very visual person. I know a lot of other people are. It's very common. And so sometimes it may be better, or it may be more conducive to your personality to do something like a vision board, a graphic design, a painting, anything that is a creative medium of some kind. And I have done that, and I found it to be very valuable for me because sometimes I like very abstract, artistic, visual things. So I was able to take what was in my mind about what it was that I wanted to do and put it into a graphic. And I had a lot of fun doing it too. So that is something to think about in terms of writing your personal mission statement and personal vision statement. And the question then becomes why? Why would someone want to do these things? What will we get out of it? What are the goals of it? And the goal, I'm going to talk about a couple of things real quick. I know you guys don't want me to be too long, but so there's a concept. It is called the celery test, and it was created by Simon Sinek, who you may or may not have heard. He has a couple different books. I've read one of them, and it was very good, and I listened to it on audiobook as well. And he speaks all over the world about things like optimism and why we do what we do and things like that. So he came up with this concept called the celery test, and that is sort of a way to test these statements. And the basic principle of it is that, let's say your mission or your vision for yourself is to be a healthy person, or to take care of yourself, or to be put together and just do the best you can for your body and your mind and everything like that. So if you go to the grocery store, you pick out a bunch of items and then you put it up on the belt. And there are a bunch of people around you. There's the cashier, there's the person behind you, there might be the person in the lane next to you. And in his example, he talks about there being a bunch of people trying to push different choices on you, like M&Ms or Kit Kat bars, or different types of like processed foods or whatever. And that might be the type of things that they like, but is that what's actually going to be healthy for you? And the test is what you put on the conveyor belt at the grocery store, because the people all around you, when they look at what you've chosen, it directly reflects on what you're putting into your body and what it is what type of person you're saying that you are. Now, before you guys go all comment on me, I fully understand that sometimes we are not shopping for ourselves. Sometimes we might be shopping for an elderly parent or a friend or someone who's sick or something like that. So taking all that into consideration, most of the time we're shopping for ourselves. Plus it's an analogy, it's just a story, so it's more about the point of it than whether or not you're shopping for you. So just understand, I've done it before, maybe you've done it before as well, where you're standing behind somebody and you're looking at the stuff that they're taking out of their cart and they're putting on, and it's all junk food, like just all junk food, all processed boxed food, and dyes and preservatives and junk and candy and all this kind of stuff like that. What do you think about how well that person cares about themselves, thinks about themselves, how healthy that person is? So you have to take that and translate that into the mission statement and the vision statement, meaning when you're out there, when you are with people, without people, by yourself, at the grocery store, at work, on a date, whatever it may be, at a club or organization meeting, with your kids, whatever. Are you matching up? Are you congruent with what it is that you are setting out to do? Are you practicing what you're preaching? And you can see that if you're consistently doing those things, you are aligning yourself with what's important to you, and you are basically telling yourself that you're on the right path. So why would a person want to do this? Why would it be important to do these exercises and goals and statements? And it's really because of two things, in my opinion. One is, well, maybe it's not just two, but the idea of what it really comes down to is reputation. If you boil all of these things down, it comes down to, what's your reputation? What do people think of you? And what people think of you, and what kind of words and phrases and things kind of follow you around when you come in the room, when you leave the room. That has a lot to do with the types of relationships we have, the types of jobs that we're offered, the types of friends we have and connections that we make, and positions of leadership that we're in. And so it's that age-old question, if you don't know where you're going, how do you know if you get there? And so if we have these principles that are guiding us, then we can know if we're going the right way, aligning with our values, or if we're going all over the place and floundering around and wondering why these opportunities and these things aren't happening for us. And I'll tell you a quick story which has a lot to do with this. And the story is about the fact that when it comes to your personal brand and when it comes to your reputation, there is no such thing as an insignificant job, an insignificant situation. So when I was a lot younger, like 10 years ago or so, I had a job at a casino, and it was kind of like my first job. It was nothing special. It was, like a hospitality thing, and it was like, I didn't love it, but I was happy to have a job. I was proud to have the job, and I had it passed down to me from my dad, this concept of making sure you understand not burning bridges, understanding that you have to treat every situation like you don't know where it's going to take you, and that you have to work hard, you have to be reliable, you have to be accountable. So even though it wasn't anything special, even though it wasn't like a corporate job or this like big salary job or anything like that, I took it very seriously. I was on time every day. I made sure that I followed the procedures. I was smiley and polite and to my superiors and not insubordinate, and I didn't brush this off as some dumb job. Not that I necessarily was perfect all the time, but I took it seriously for the type of job that it was. Now, eventually in that job, I got laid off, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, but which is how I ended up starting my consulting business. But that being said, I got laid off from that job, and many years went by, almost 10 years. Now, about 5 or 6 months ago, I went to interview for a job, which is the job that I have now. And it was super important to me. I love speaking and I love consulting and I love, social media and everything, but there's also the inconsistency of it and like no benefits and no retirement and everything like that. So this position opened up. It's exactly what it is that I do at a company that I love and have wanted to work at for a really long time. So this is literally dream job situation here. And it turned out that the person who was my boss all those years ago in the insignificant casino hospitality job is now the director of the department at this particular place. Now, if I had treated that job as a joke, which many people had at the time, if I had called out all the time, if I was lazy, if I didn't work, or if I wasn't punctual, or if I, brushed it off and yeah, whatever, I'll get there when I get there, or whatever, like a lot of the people were, I would not have the job that I have now. And I think that's really important for people to understand, especially young people who are not really looking that far in advance. So it's important for us to remember that there's no insignificant job, there's no insignificant situation. If you go even to a barbecue or something and you do something like you tell a racist joke or you do something offensive or whatever, you don't know who's there. You don't know who you're going to run into again, or who you might interview with, or who might not recommend you for a job, or whatever it may be. Our personal brand, our reputation can be the difference between really big deal situations in our lives. A letter of recommendation or an interview, or somebody vouching for you in a situation where you really need them to, people giving you the benefit of the doubt, whatever it may be. And so I could have, and the other thing about that story is that both of us worked in the casino together at the time, and throughout the 10 years both went completely different directions, to where I would never in a million years have guessed that we'd both end up here in the industry that we're in, because I went off and did this, consulting thing. She worked at an aquarium for a while, which has nothing to do with anything that we both do now. But we both sort of did this circle back thing where we ended up where we are now. And had I could have walked into that interview room and saw her and gone like, oh no, like I'm never gonna get this job. Or what ended up happening, which is I walked in and she gave me a big hug and we reminisced a little bit, and I showed her my portfolio and everything went great. So that's why your personal brand matters. That's why having something, a set of guiding principles that you follow, is really important. And the last thing I'll talk about is this thing that I mentioned in the beginning, which is the importance of saying no. And this, I might expand on this another time, because it is such a broad topic, but in the context of the personal brand, you have this guiding set of principles. And what happens when you clearly define that, there's such a great freedom that comes with that, because now you can test everything against it. You can bounce things onto it, and do they stick or do they bounce off? Because if you take the time to really define these things, they're very specific, they're very unique to you, they're very meaningful to you, and they take into account your passions and your goals and what you want to do, and you're very convicted about these statements, then that means when an amazing opportunity comes along, and it's like this great, lucrative, super cool, amazing opportunity comes along, and you say, does this align with my goals? Does this align with my mission? Does this align with my personal brand? And if it doesn't, you can say no with no regrets. And I have done this before, and it feels amazing, because we can't be everything to everyone. I have tried, believe me, you cannot. And so we have to use this. It's almost like, you're driving and like stuff is deflecting off of you in a sense, and you just keep going like blinders, because we only have a certain amount of time, we only have a certain amount of ability to give our resources out, and so many of us are overwhelmed and overworked and stretched too thin because we're saying yes to so many things. We're overextended. And it's so freeing to be able to say no to this wide variety of options, so we can say yes to the ones that really matter. But we can only do that if we know what really matters to us. And that's why developing the branding and all of this is so important, because now we have conviction, and we can say, no, that doesn't align with my values. I'm going to wait until an opportunity comes along that does. And it really helps to make sure that the things that you're doing, that they matter and that they mean something to you, and that you are doing the most good that you can while you're here for what the skills and assets and things that you've determined are yours. So just please keep in mind that our brand is a lot. It can be the way you talk. It can be the clothing you wear or your appearance in general. It can be whether or not you're the type of person that talks badly about other people or gossips about people, and people assume, well, if they talk about other people, they're going to talk about me. It can be your social media profiles, whether or not you're liking, commenting, and sharing on things that are racist or sexually explicit or hate-filled, or just things that are, violent, or anything that is just inappropriate behavior. Make sure that you think of those things, because unfortunately there's people out there that are looking. We all know these days, and if you don't know, I'm here to tell you that if you're looking for a job, these employers are looking at your social media pages, and if you think that everything is ironclad private, it's not. I'm sorry to say. If they find something, and a lot of people, I think it was 70% of businesses from a survey in 2018, 70% of people that were hiring said that they used social media to screen people to see what they were all about. And half of those people reported finding something on the social media accounts that made people either think twice or straight up not hire someone based on what they saw. So making sure that we keep all of that in mind and work on defining what's important to us, having a mission statement, having a vision statement, just being more aware of viewing yourself in the sense of a brand or of your reputation, and how much that can affect, and how important it is that we actually put some work and effort into it. It does feel like work, and there is some effort involved, and it might feel a little bit, I don't know what the word is, but like this stuff shouldn't have to be scientifically figured out. You should just be you. And I tried that for a while, and it's just sort of a very drifting, sort of coasting along thing. There really is something beautiful and freeing about having these things defined and knowing where you're going, what success looks like, what your values are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and only saying yes to the things that align with that. So I hope that helps you, and if you have any questions, or you need maybe more resources, or you want to let us all know what your mission or vision statement was or is, I would love for you to put them in the comments, and I would love for you to subscribe so we can talk some more about these things. Have a great day.